Ladies, gentlemen, and genetic anomalies, what is happening? Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and if not, hope that today's stream makes your day at least a little bit better. I am your host, Nanubi, coming to you live in the East Coast of the United States of America, on assignment, as one could say. I'm actually here on vacation, but yeah, we have a whole bunch of things to get to in this stream. There were a lot of things I wanted to talk about in my previous stream, but I just didn't have the stamina to get through every single thing. You know, I can admit that. Had quite a busy week so far with traveling and all that stuff, but I'm gonna get back to it because there are a whole lot of stories and articles, and well, maybe not articles because it's mostly videos, but a bunch of things I want to react to still, to kind of like get caught up on the news and talk about some of the things I've wanted to talk about here on the stream and on the channel for a while, but I've just been too busy with planning the trip and all that stuff. So looking forward to getting into everything. I'm gonna go ahead and cut off the music because I do want to go ahead and get everything started here. So right, there we go, because this is my second stream in the day. So I was streaming earlier, but I cut that off, but I'm back now, so we're all good, and it's time to get back into the thick of things. Hold on, let me just double check this here real quick, because I did basically create this stream setup in a single day. Did a lot of testing earlier, so there might be some technical difficulties. There shouldn't be, but I did a fair amount of testing here. But I did want to react to this. I did want to react to this news here, which sort of has been blowing up online from what I can tell. And this is regarding the whole, public media situation, right? So we know that the federal government cut a bunch of funding for PBS as well as NPR. And so I found it very interesting that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting very, very recently announced that they would be shutting down because, if you want to know the backstory of the whole PBS and NPR thing, and I think it's fair to share this information because there's been a lot of misinformation regarding the situation, what cutting funding to PBS and NPR would actually do, because people have been sort of fear-mongering out there, right? They've been saying like, oh, this means that we're going to lose shows like Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood and those types of things are going to get shut down, no more Caillou, all that stuff, because, PBS and NPR is losing funding. Well, that's not really entirely the truth because NPR and PBS, they don't get the majority of their funding from the federal government, actually. They get the majority of their funding from viewers like you, like those little bumpers at the end of each episode of PBS Kids Show or whatever, and viewers like you, thank you. Like, that's because the majority of their funding actually comes from either wealthy or non-wealthy donors, and so that's actually how PBS and NPR proper get the majority of their funding. And when I say proper, I mean like like the national organizations, right? Like the nationwide company, not individual NPR or PBS stations. So the money that they get from donations from not private equity, but the money that they get from private sources, not public money, that money is what is used for things like the production of television shows, the maintaining of the majority of channels and things like that. When it comes to public money and public funds, that money is basically used to fill up the gaps. There are a lot of smaller markets that just don't have the capacity or the ability to make enough money from local donors in order to survive. And so for those stations, they get federal funding. And so that's sort of what is being cut here with this new kind of like spending policy with the bill that got passed through Congress. Now, in light of all this, because I knew that, getting rid of of federal spending for NPR and PBS would not affect the majority of NPR and PBS stations. I knew that it wouldn't affect production. So I was like, well, hold on, this is a bit odd, right? The Corporation for Public Broadcasting is getting shut down. Sorry about that. But I did a few minutes of research, and it makes a whole lot more sense now. So let's go through this article. This is from NBC News. It says Corporation for Public Broadcasting says it will shut down after Congress cut money. Currently, the CPB helps support more than 1,500 locally owned NPR and PBS member stations. Let's see here. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting announced Friday that it will begin shutting down weeks after Congress canceled previously approved funding for the nation's steward of public media access. The CPB said in a statement that it will begin an orderly wind down of its operations after nearly 60 years with the support of the federal government. It said that most staff positions will conclude with the close of the fiscal year in September 30th. A small team of employees will remain through January 2026, it added. It did not specify how many people in total were being laid off. Despite the extraordinary efforts of millions of Americans who called, wrote, and petitioned Congress to preserve federal funding for CPB, we now face the difficult reality of closing our operations, the corporation's president and CEO, Patricia Harrison, said in a statement. CPB remains committed to fulfilling its fiduciary responsibilities and supporting our partners through this transition with transparency and care. Now, this sounds really bad, and that's actually what I thought. Like, when I first saw this, I was like, this is actually pretty bad. That, like, one of the key organizations when it comes to PBS and NPR is getting shut down is, it's getting shut down with the lack of funding. And I thought it wouldn't affect, production or in any way. Well, it turns out that is still true. So I went to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting's website. They actually have this little splash video here. We could take a look at this. I actually haven't seen this yet.
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting is a private, nonprofit corporation funded by the American people. CPB was first authorized by Congress in the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967. As the steward of the federal appropriation for public media, CPB invests taxpayer dollars in a strong public media system. By statute, more than 70% of CPB funding goes to locally operated and controlled public radio and television stations, supporting more than 1,500 stations nationwide. Funding includes supporting educational media and resources for learners of all ages through programs such as Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, and filmmakers and producers such as Ken Burns, Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr., and up-and-coming filmmakers from across the country. CPB supports trusted local, regional, national, and international news and information. Funding to CPB enables the essential infrastructure for our nation's emergency alert system. By design, public media's funding comes from many sources, but CPB is the largest single source of funding for public radio, television, and related services. CPB funding provides the public part of the public-private partnership that defines public media in America.
So that's actually interesting because I did not know that. Actually, hold on. Let me check this real quick. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. All right, yeah. So I'm actually a little bit. Oh, hold on. There we go. All right. Sorry, there. Trying to figure out all the scenes and stuff. But I actually didn't know that the CPB did funding for production. I thought it was primarily for broadcast and. For broadcast stations like television or radio. It seems like that is primarily what they do. Actually, hold on. Let me rewind that a bit.
Educational media and resources for learners of all ages. Education funding includes supporting educational media and resources for learners of all ages, supporting more than 1,500 stations nationwide.
Oh yeah. So yeah, if you actually go back here, they specifically don't mention that they specifically send funds towards the production of national programs. You can see that right here.
Funding includes supporting educational media and resources for learners of all ages through programs such as Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
So basically it says that they make these programs accessible for Americans, but they're not actually funding the production of those programs. They're just making them accessible to people through television and through radio. So they are primarily just a terrestrial funding company, but also they funnel money from the federal government to the United States. It actually says it here. It says CPB is the steward of the federal government's investment in public broadcasting and the single source of funding for public radio, television, and related online and mobile services. Right? And so it makes total sense then that CPB is getting shut down, because if you're not sending any federal funds to PBS or NPR for public media, then what's the point of the company existing, right? Because they're not receiving anything and they can't give anything away. It's just like they're just gonna sit there doing nothing. So that sort of I think that from that perspective, it totally makes sense that the corporation was shut down. And I think honestly, it's no longer needed if there are no longer any taxpayer funds going towards PBS and NPR. I will say they certainly could have kept on going and saying, hey, we'll take donations and things from viewers and donors and stuff. And I think that actually could have worked quite well. I'm not sure why they didn't decide to do that, but hey, here we are, clearly. And it's not like NPR and PBS stations can't continue to take donations on their own. The CPP was never really needed, I would say. It just streamlined things a little bit more. So instead of the federal government giving money to NPR in one bucket and PBS another, they just gave the money to CPB and then let them all sort that out. Let's see. All right, so I've wanted to react to this video for a while. This is an interview that Zohran Mamdani did on, I believe, on the Sunday talk show Meet the Press, and this is where he gave the quote, "I don't think we should have billionaires," which on its face is deeply problematic, I would say. But let's watch the whole video and kind of see what he has to say, because let's be honest, I know for myself when it comes to Zohran Mamdani, I've mostly just seen snippets and clips of him. It's very easy to be taken out of context in snippets and clips. So I just want to see the whole interview and kind of make a judgment call for myself and what I think of the guy.
Welcome back. A stunning political upset this.
Oh, come on.
This week in the race to lead America's biggest city, 33-year-old Democratic Socialist and New York State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani is poised to win the Democratic primary for New York City, beating out former Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's now set to head to the general election, but his likely primary win is already sending shockwaves through the Democratic Party. And joining me now is Zohran Mamdani. Mr. Mamdani, welcome to Meet the Press.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. There is so much to discuss. We have to start with your remarkable victory in the primary for mayor. You're 33 years old. As I just said, you started out at close to 0% in the polls, Mr. Mamdani. You came back to topple one of the biggest names in New York politics, Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah.
What was the secret to your success? Do you think it was your message? Do you think that voters were voting against Andrew Cuomo? A little bit of both? How do you see it?
I think ultimately it was the focus on the fact that we live in the most expensive city in the United States of America. It's also the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and yet 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty, and the rest are seemingly trapped in a state of anxiety. And what we've seen is that this is a city that needs to be affordable for the people who build it every day. Our focus was on exactly that, and by keeping that focus on an economic agenda, we showed New Yorkers that this could be more than just a museum of what once was. It could be a living, breathing testament to possibility.
Now, one thing I really like about sort of some of the modern socialists, what I've seen, not that I support socialism at all, but one thing I like about them is that they've emphasized improving quality of life for a lot of people. There's certainly ways to do that without socialism, but it is certainly appreciated that they're making such a focus of their campaigns. I do sort of want to push back, though. I think that a major reason why folks in New York City are voting against folks like Cuomo, folks like Eric Adams, is more because of corruption. Because we've seen how, they all have sort of had their own hands in steeped, or what is it, paths steeped in corruption. Like we've seen how they've all had their hands in corruption in some way or another, and just in various forms. These are very scandal-ridden candidates, and when you're talking about like an establishment lane, it's really hard to succeed when you have big scandals like what Andrew Cuomo has, and like Eric Adams has had to face as well. So I think that the reason why people are voting for Zohran Mamdani is largely against the corruption that we've seen from the previous class of establishment mayors and politicians in New York. But I will give Zohran Mamdani credit where credit is due, because times are tough for a lot of Americans right now. And so to look them in the eyes and say, hey, we're going to do better, we're going to make life more livable for you, especially in the face of legacy politicians who've been saying the exact same thing but have been delivering nothing for the people of New York. I think that it is sort of like an added bonus for sure, if not like a ×2 multiplier or something. Like, I do have to give him some credit there on his approach being appealing for a lot of citizens.
Well, let me ask you about what I was just discussing with Senator Chris Murphy. The fact that you have leaders Schumer, leaders Hakeem Jeffrey, who wrote very nice things about your victory, said you'd won a very strong campaign, have not endorsed you. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has endorsed you. Do you think the Democratic establishment is afraid of you?
I think that people are catching up to this election. This is an election that went against so much of the analysis that had been told about our party and where we needed to head to. And ultimately, what we're showing is that by putting working people first, by returning to the roots of the Democratic Party, we actually have a path out of this moment where we're facing authoritarianism in Washington, D.C.
Well, let's talk.
Okay. Authoritarianism. Okay. Maybe we should slow our horses a little bit. I mean, Donald Trump is no more authoritarian than what we've seen in presidents past, I would say. So I am a little bit annoyed by people acting like things like what's it called? Law enforcement are examples of authoritarianism, but honestly, par for the course for Democrats. We should probably just move on.
Talk about your policies, your vision for this city. Here are some of the things you've proposed: free buses, rent-stabilized housing, a $30 minimum wage, the creation of city-owned grocery stores. It's a very long list of proposals. So let me ask you, if you were to be elected the next mayor of New York, what would your day one priority be? So
kind of on some of those things, I actually sort of agree. Well, I only agree with one of those things. I think about it. I thought there were two. Maybe I need to listen to it again. But the one thing I do agree with is city buses and stuff like that. Public transit should be free. I have never understood this. Why you pay taxes to fund forms of public transportation that you then have to pay to use. That makes no sense to me. Just put the full cost of the transit system inside of the taxes and then just let me use it as much as I want. Like, I think that you're double taxing your citizens to use a public good, and you're taking money away from people who aren't even using that system. Like, okay, you want to take the taxes for building and maintaining the metro, fine, but then don't charge me again when I actually want to use the thing that I paid for. Like, that's insane. I've always thought that was kind of crazy, and that's kind of absurd. Now, for the whole city-run grocery stores, obviously that's problematic. I probably don't even have to explain the problems with that, because I think it's a little bit obvious. The $30 an hour minimum wage is also equally ludicrous, because that is just going to be an inflation machine. Prices are going to get incredibly inflated in New York City, is going to price out a lot of people. It will make life a lot harder for the homeless as well, because, if prices are ballooning up, that makes it even harder for the homeless to survive. They're getting donations from people nearby, but if the amount of money that they get from citizens doesn't increase, which it might for all we know, it would certainly make sense to some degree if it did. But even if it didn't, they'll be able to afford a few things with the money that they get from panhandling, and then that'll just make life harder for the homeless. And if you don't have a job, I think it just makes life a whole lot worse, because you might be able to get on federal assistance or whatever, but still the money is just not going to go as far, unless maybe Mamdani has a plan to increase the amount of assistance for the unemployed, which for all I know he might have a policy for. I haven't read his whole fact sheet or website when it comes to all of his policy positions and stuff. So to be fair, he might have a solution for that problem. What was the other thing that he said that I didn't wasn't a fan of?
Grocery stores. It's a very long list of proposals. So let me ask you.
Rent stabilized housing. No, I don't like that. That's almost as bad as the real page stuff. If landlords own property to make money, and if they're not going to be able to make money, which things like limiting the limiting what rent prices can be might do, then you're going to see people just stop giving rent to people, and then you're going to have a housing shortage. That's going to be a problem. The government may step in and buy those places, but then of course you have to worry about maintaining everything, and usually those types of things just start crumbling very quickly. I've never heard of federal run apartment housing that has maintained a high quality of service and living conditions for those living in that city or country or wherever, and also hasn't collapsed due to just not being a sustainable system. So the majority of these policies don't love. I do like the free public transit, though. I think that that's a genius idea. I feel like everyone should be embracing that, to be honest. Like, I would love to see the justification for, like, hey, you should have to pay twice to use the metro. Like, you can't make a rational argument for that. I feel like you can't.
If you were to be elected the next mayor of New York, what would your day one priority be?
The first thing is living up to these promises that I've made, because I've made them because I intend to keep them. And in a city of about 8.5 million people, close to 2.5 million New Yorkers live in rent-stabilized housing. The mayor, through a board called the Rent Guidelines Board, sets whether or not those rents increase or stay the same. The previous mayoral administration froze the rent 3 times. This one, led by Mayor Adams, increased it by 9%. So the first thing that I would do is start to constitute a board that votes in reflection of reality. And the reality I'm speaking of is that the median household income of those tenants is $60,000 a year. The landlords of those units have seen their profits increase by 12%. It's time for relief for working class New Yorkers.
Okay, well, of course, the big question.
Okay, well, I mean, part of it is I think that you need to crack down on companies like RealPage. Now, I will say, of course, I'm a capitalist, but I think RealPage has sort of shown that you've got, it has basically led to collusion amongst landlords to raise rents in order to maximize profits to an absurd degree, kind of pressure, kind of push renters to as close as they can get to the pain point without leaving. But the problem is that RealPage is so commonly used to set rent prices that it ends up being collusion and basically price fixing for an entire region or even the entire country, depending on which area is using RealPage. Like, if you've got a computer that says, hey, raise your rent by 20%, and like 80% of landlords are using it unthinkingly, then what you're gonna see is just rent just go up. I feel like we need to have government policies that say, hey, you are not allowed to use some sort of system, software, or advice from someone who is giving advice to others about what to set your prices. You have to do your own analysis to determine what your rent prices should be. And I think there you'll probably see more variation in rent prices. You'll also see fairer prices, because a lot of these people are just like using these systems automatically, not even really thinking about the prices going up or down. But if they were to sit down, they'd be like, you know what? maybe bumping up rent by 10% this upcoming year for this next lease for this tenant actually doesn't make sense, right? When I see how much I'm making, how much the renter is making, like this just doesn't match reality. I'm not going to do this. I feel like that would fix a lot of the problems when it comes to rent nowadays.
Question is, how are you going to pay for it? You've proposed increasing taxes on wealthier New Yorkers. The Democratic governor, though, of your state, Kathy Hochul, says she's not going to support increasing taxes in order to get it across the finish line. I want to let you take a listen to a little bit of what she had to say recently and respond on the other side. Here she is.
I'm not raising taxes on people at a time when affordability is the big issue. I'm actually cutting middle class taxes.
Even on the wealthy.
I don't want to lose any more people to go to Palm Beach. We've lost enough.
How are you going to raise taxes if you can't get Democrats to support it?
So I think what we've shown over the last 8 months is our ability to take that which is considered a
show of hands.
To support it.
Here's what I want. Here's what I want. For the live viewers, I want you to put this in the chat. For the people watching on demand on the highlights channel, I want you to put this in the comments. Show of hands. Which of you guys enjoys paying taxes, and not only that, but wants to pay more of them? Show of hands. Show of hands. I kind of want to kind of get the temperature in the room. Kind of figure out, why on earth possibly raising taxes isn't the most popular thing in the world to do.
So I think what we've shown over the last 8 months is our ability to take that which is considered a non-starter and make it seem inevitable. We've shown that with this campaign, and ultimately we're seeing that our vision to tax the top 1% of New Yorkers, these are New Yorkers who make $1 million a year or more, and our proposal is to just tax them by 2% additional, is something that has broad support and will continue to increase that support over the next few months and years.
So you think you're going to be able to twist Governor Hochul's arm and get her to support raising taxes? I mean, what about the fact that she says she's concerned New Yorkers might leave? They might go to Florida.
I think
and that is true. Actually, they will leave and they will go to Florida. One thing too is that there are a whole lot of extremely wealthy people who live in New York City, and they love all the amenities of New York City. There are a lot of nice things to do in New York City. There are a whole lot of nice places to go in New York City. Very fancy areas, and I think it's a major driver of the New York economy. By trying to exorbitantly tax those very people who are keeping your economy going is sort of a ridiculous idea. It's like I could make an analogy, but I feel like it might not actually do justice to how ridiculous of an idea it is to be like, hey, we're having a problem in New York City where the economy is having problems. You know what we should do? We should take away money from the people who are spending the most in this city. That will make the economy better. Like, no, it won't. Because, the way the economy works is people buy things at places, funding, keeping jobs afloat, funding those jobs, allowing people to earn a living. That's how the economy works. At least under a capitalist system, which, we all know this, I'm not a fan of, but that's how capitalism works.
I think it's time for a leadership that doesn't twist arms, but rather builds partnership. And I'm looking forward to having that with the governor, because ultimately my policies, my vision, it's driven by an assessment of what's actually happening. The Fiscal Policy Institute found that the top 1% of New Yorkers leave at 1/4 the rate of other income groups. And when they do leave, it's actually to other states considered high tax, New Jersey, California. So it's not fiscal policy.
So rich people don't go to Texas, rich people don't go to Florida? Kathy Hochul said a whole lot of rich people going to Florida, and I'm inclined to believe her there.
It's quality of life. And ultimately, the reason I want to increase these taxes on the top 1%, the most profitable corporations, is to increase quality of life for everyone, including those who are going to be taxed.
Here's how the Washington Post editorial board wrote about your proposals. They say a massive minimum wage would depress low-skilled employment. His rent freeze would reduce the housing supply and decrease its quality. Cutting bus fares would leave a transit funding hole that, unless somehow filled, would erode service. Meanwhile, the grocery business operates on thin margins, and his plan for city-run stores would probably lead to fewer options, poor service, and shortages. Mr. Mum?
I think that with the whole grocery business thing, it really depends on what the prices are set to for the groceries. I would not be shocked to see them sort of undercut capitalist, privately owned businesses and sort of drive them out of business, if that's what happens, then yes, what they're saying here would probably happen. But it's also possible that they set the prices to be equal to or higher than what existing grocery stores are selling their products for. And if that's the case, then it probably won't hurt, the supply of groceries in New York that much. Now, let's go back here.
Business hole that unless
okay, I do want to talk about this part here where it says cutting bus fares would leave a transit funding hole that, unless somehow filled, would erode service. I actually think it's fair to increase taxes for bus fares, like to cover the cost of bus fares, to cover the cost of however much the average person spends on a metro system. Because, I mean, hey, look, it's public. It's supposed to be for everyone to use. If you're, in my opinion, if you're paying for the system, you should be able to use it. If you're paying for it and you're not using it, well, hey, other people can use it, right? Like for the streets and the roads, right? That's public. The streets and roads are public. So when you pay your local taxes, that is for the maintenance of the streets. I don't think it would be reasonable for like a public road in some town somewhere to be like, oh, you can't use this road unless you pay us a tax on the road. Like, I do note that there are toll highways and stuff as well, and I am not a fan of those either. I understand why they exist, but I'm not a fan of that either, because it's like, bro, I paid for that road that you're letting me not use. That's ridiculous. I actually would take like a 1% to 2% higher tax rate if I could just access all forms of public transportation without having to pay any additional funds. And actually, if that was the case, I would use public transportation more as well. Especially for getting short distances. Like, it's like a waste of it's an unnecessary waste of gas and space and things to just go from one side of town to the other when I could just use a form of public transportation.
Somehow filled with a road service. Meanwhile, the grocery business operates on thin margins, and his plan for city-run stores would probably lead to fewer options, poor service, and shortages. Mr. Mamdani, are your proposals going to hurt the very people you're trying to help?
Not at all. There have been many in editorial board who have had concerns, and what we've shown is that more than 400,000 New Yorkers are excited about this vision. And the reason they're excited about it is one that is in line with the scale of the crisis in this city. I mean,
I don't know if, I could be wrong, but I think that one thing that you'll never see Zoran Mamdani do is point to a place where publicly funded grocery stores have worked, for example, right? Or point to a place where rent fixing has worked, because that is just generally not how it goes. Usually when you implement these sorts of things, it just results in an economic catastrophe. So I think it's kind of unfortunate that he's pushing these, proposing these policies, and also that very clearly New York City citizens are fans of those policies, at least to an extent where they would vote for it. But to be fair, again, I can't really blame them when their alternatives are these lying, corrupt politicians who keep on giving these false promises about improving quality of life, but they're never delivering on those promises that they keep on providing.
We are talking about our tax base growing smaller and smaller each day, with New Yorkers leaving to New Jersey, to Pennsylvania, to Connecticut. If we do not meet this moment, we will lose this city. And our proposals are ones that are thought out. They are ones that are also clearly going to be funded by these revenue streams. I'll give you an example. When we talk about grocery stores, I've put forward a proposal for a pilot of one grocery store in each borough. These are 5 grocery stores that would cost $60 million in a city budget of more than $113 billion. And ultimately, the reason that we are so excited by them is we've seen that they've worked in Kansas. We've seen that when a feasibility study was done in Chicago, it was shown to be something that was not only feasible, but pressing and urgent in an urban setting. And
hold on, so I'm going to look this up. So we've got Kansas public funded grocery stores. Because I actually didn't know that they had this in Kansas. Oh, here's the headline. Kansas City poured millions into a grocery store and they still close. Well, that's promising. Hold on, wait, what is this? Kansas City's government-backed grocery store failing customers? What the heck? Bro, the place is empty. Yo, you can't make this up. You can't. I feel bad for laughing because this is like pretty bad. Kansas City's failing government-funded grocery stores are an international infamy for its empty shelves and rotten smells. What is this? This is crazy. A shocking state of $29 million government-run supermarket in notorious Mad Max City. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. It's called Sunfresh Grocery Store. And this is gonna be real quick, because I know this is a long interview. I just want to see a video of someone walking in the store. This is crazy. 3 months ago, they were saying that they were struggling to stay afloat.
Well, yesterday, as a voice for everyone, we amplified the voices of frustrated customers and community leaders over the deteriorating conditions at the Sunfresh grocery store, the one located in the Linwood Shopping Center off Prospect.
Basically nothing. It's like there's nothing on the shelves.
I said before, there was
I mean, a lot of the times when people talk about like the state of something, they're exaggerating, but they're like very clearly that's not what's happening here. There's like nothing.
time this store was on life support.
That's so bad.
I can tell you today, right now, it's damn near dead.
Yo.
That grocery store has received financial assistance from the city, but has been unable to keep shelves stocked. This area in the past has often been referred to as a food desert. So tonight, KSHB 41 reporter Alyssa Jackson going in depth with this issue to help find answers and solutions for shoppers.
A Sunfresh Market has been on the corner of Linwood and Prospect since 2018. The store was a part of an East Side revitalization project that put a spark back in the community. I'm going in depth to find out why, after millions of dollars invested, the store is still struggling to remain open. Empty shelves and coolers, a lack of prepared hot and cold food turns shoppers away.
Like, I thought it was just the produce aisle, but it looks like the entire place is empty. This looks like a dead mall, but for a grocery store.
Hey, not before they smell a rancid odor coming through the door.
We need answers, because at the end of the day, that don't make sense.
The state of the market now on Kansas City's East Side is not what the community expected in 2017.
We need this so badly.
When the presence of the market and shopping center looked like a new beginning. The city of Kansas City owns the shopping center. Sunfresh is part of a community improvement district, meaning the city does make money off of a 1% retail sales tax on purchases to help pay for the development. The entire Linwood shopping center was a $15 million.
Okay, so the juice is still there. Okay, so it's stocked with juice. Credit where credit is due.
Private investment. Last year, the city council approved $750,000 for security, lighting, and infrastructure supported by federal funding.
No security, got a problem. No product, you got a problem. And here, maybe, soon, no store. We really got a problem then.
The ownership group of the Sunfresh is actually a nonprofit called Community Builders of Kansas City. The group declined an interview, but sent a statement saying in part that it has worked tirelessly to provide food and necessary services to the urban community. For years, it has been vocal of the challenges it faces. Community Builders' concerns and fears are well documented. Meanwhile, 7 years after opening its doors, the store is already in need of another spark to stay. So what is the city doing about it? The city
I'm just shocked at how empty the shelves are. That's
manager's
crazy.
office said staff is working with the property manager and other partners to address concerns. There have been tests to investigate any plumbing issues and smells. The city also wants to change how it spends some.
That's not the primary concern. Your store has no products. Your store has no products. That's the problem. That's the main problem. I think people would endure some bad smells if they could get what they needed from the store. At the end of the day. At the end of the day, that's what they would do. But you have a store with nothing to sell. when your store shelf looks like this, okay? I don't think that the plumbing is the biggest problem. But okay, so now we see the result of what Zoran Mamdani would like to see happen. So yeah, let's resume this interview here.
Is we've seen that they've worked in it would cost $60 million in a city budget of more than $113 billion. And ultimately, the reason that we are so excited by them is we've seen that they've worked in Kansas. We've seen that when a feasibility study was done in Chicago, it was shown to be something that was not only feasible but pressing and urgent in an urban setting. And finally, it costs less than half of what the city's already set to spend on subsidizing corporate supermarkets without any guarantee of cheaper prices, any guarantee of collective bargaining agreements, or that they accept SNAP or WIC.
But I don't think those shelves are empty though. So that's a big plus. Hey, we got Bray Leno here in the chat. What is up, Bray Leno? Yeah, there's badges now. You gain XP by chatting more in a stream, but I think that XP expires after the stream is over. I think that they just need to make it so that XP is just like permanent. So like whenever you send a chat message, you get XP and it stays there. Like a lot of popular Discord bots do this. Twitch started doing this like 2 or 3 years ago. I thought that was really cool. They need to do this in YouTube as well. In my opinion, I think it just adds like a fun little aspect to it. But I will say that I think that it incentivizes more people to chat in an individual stream versus just like in general over time. I could send a lot of chat messages to like on like 2 or 3 streams from a YouTuber, have like a whole bunch of XP and then not feel like I need to keep on chatting in future streams. So I can see why they limited it to just individual streams, but I think in the future they really need to make it so that, you know, it's permanent. So if you are you are watching a stream from a particular person, you send a bunch of chat messages, that accrued XP remains the same for the following stream. Like I just think that that would just make things a whole lot more fun and a whole lot more interesting.
Take me to my next question about grocery stores. Some executives, including one of the top grocery stores owners, billionaires, threatening to shut down his supermarket in the city. John Catsimatidis, who runs Gristedes Grocery.
Castamo what? Okay.
Down his supermarket in the city. John Catsimatidis, who runs Gristedes grocery chain, you're probably very familiar with him. He said this on Election Day, quote, "If the city of New York is going socialist, I will definitely close or sell or move or franchise the Gristedes locations." In order to run New York City successfully as mayor, do you not need the support of a billionaire businessman like John Catsimatidis?
I don't know if I need his support specifically, but I want to make clear that my vision for this city is a vision for every single New Yorker, including business leaders across the city. And the reason I say that is that my proposals, even the ones to increase the top corporate tax rate of New York to match that of New Jersey, are ones that would also benefit those business leaders. Because when I have conversations with them, what I also hear is the just how expensive this city is preventing them from attracting and retaining the talent they need to grow their business. And ultimately, I'm looking forward to having those meetings, having those sit-downs to make clear why this vision would benefit all.
We went on your website.
No, because if you're putting in a city-run grocery store, especially if you're going to undercut the prices of local grocery stores, what you're going to do is you're going to drive away those customers to your state-funded grocery store, shutting down the privately owned grocery store, and then of course the city-run grocery store is going to fail, and then the citizens are left with nothing. I don't see how that really helps anyone. It doesn't help the rich, unless you're in like the government or whatever. It doesn't help the rich because you basically destroyed their business. It doesn't help the poor because now they can't buy food. It's just like it's all around just a sucky idea.
And realize there's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax.
Bray Leno in the chat says, personal news, I moved back to my Nana's stepdad sucks so bad, bro. Did you move away from the stepdad? Kind of curious. Bray Leno says, oh man, that's loud. Oh, was it me pouring the water into this? I have a compressor on that makes everything louder, or at least it should. So maybe that's why it sounds so loud, but it shouldn't be sounding that loud, to be honest. It shouldn't be sounding that much louder than my voice, because the compressor I have, the main goal of it is to make everything have the same level of volume, so that if I shout, it doesn't blow your eardrums out. But if I speak in a quiet voice like I am now, because I'm in a hotel, it doesn't, sound like super quiet. You have to turn up the volume super loud.
There's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. Explain why you are bringing race into your tax proposal.
That is just a description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed. We've seen time and again that this is a problem.
That's a lie, though, because if you just wanted to be like, oh hey, which neighborhoods are overtaxed and undertaxed, you make a list of saying, oh, how much is each neighborhood getting taxed, sort it, and then say the ones that are being overtaxed, we'll address these. The ones that are being undertaxed, we'll address this. Versus saying, oh, we'll just target the white people. Like, bruh. What do they say? BFFR? Be freaking for real, I guess. like, come on, bro.
A description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed. We've seen time and again that this is a property tax system that is inequitable. It's one that actually Eric Adams ran on, saying that he would change in the first 100 days. He's since sought to defend it and lost at every juncture in court.
And I understand you're saying we're simply describing the types of neighborhoods that would see these increase in taxes, and yet by invoking race, do you run the risk of potentially alienating key constituents?
I think I'm just naming things as they are. And ultimately, the thing that motivates me in this is to create a system of fairness. It is not to work backwards from a racial assessment of neighborhoods or our city. Rather, it's to ensure that...
But that's what he's doing.
That we actually have an equal playing field. And right now what we see with the property tax...
Literally what he's proposing is the opposite of that.
Tax system is one that is overtaxing a number of New Yorkers and undertaxing others, and an inability of political will to resolve that.
So no plans to change that language on your website?
The focus here is to actually ensure a fair property tax system, and that the use of that language is just an assessment of the neighborhood.
All right. You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires, because frankly it is so much money in a moment of such inequality, and ultimately what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Well,
that's a crazy thing to say, I feel like, because billionaires spend probably like the majority, well, maybe not the majority of money, but they spend a ridiculous amount of money. Like $1 billion is a lot of money, and they're not particularly stingy about it. Like, they will spend money on expensive housing, funding big projects, which they'll buy a property, raise the land, and build a house there. That creates a whole lot of jobs. They will buy an expensive car that needs a lot of maintenance. That funds jobs. They will buy yachts. That funds jobs. They will buy Prada bags and all these things. Like, that creates jobs. And just the idea of taking the very richest people in society, who spend like some of the most amount of money in that society, and being like, no, we are going to take away a lot of your money because we're mad that we don't have as much money as you do, is just ludicrous. Because here's the thing, right? You would have to, for me to get on board with a policy like this, which I probably wouldn't anyways, but you would, if I'm going to be completely honest, you would need to say, okay, billionaires spend money this way. Me taking away the amount of the money that they would be spending on that particular thing is going to be spent in this other way that's going to be more beneficial than that person having a job, right? Than that person getting a random tip from a wealthy business person at a fancy restaurant. Like, he would just be hard pressed to me to argue that any form of government funds would be more advantageous to these people than having the jobs that they do because of the existence of billionaires. It's just like, that's a tall order for me, man. And I don't think I can get on board with a policy like that.
Let me ask you about what Donald Trump, the president of the United States, has had to say. He's had a lot to say about your campaign. He called you a communist. Because he's the president, I want to give you a chance to respond directly to him. How do you respond? Are you a communist?
He's not allowed to be a communist. I actually kind of hate this. I brought this up in a recent free speech video that I made, I believe. But, we need to change this law, because I do think that the laws that exist should be enforced, and I don't want this law enforced, is that I think it's still illegal to be like a professing communist or have a communist party in the United States of America. I think because of all the old McCarthyism stuff. We need to repeal that. I think that we need to let people show their true colors. If they're communists, just let them say that they're communists, and you can take it from there. If the people want communism, then hey, democracy rules. Vote in the communism and let the calamity commence. But he's never going to say that he is a communist because he is running for public office, and he would put himself in legal jeopardy if he decided to do so.
No, I am not. And I have already had to start to get used to the fact that the president will talk about how I look, how I sound, where I'm from, who I am, ultimately because he wants to distract from what I'm fighting for. And I'm fighting for the very working people that he ran a campaign.
I don't know that Trump has done that. I know that some others have. I think I was very disappointed to see Mary Morgan do this. There were some other folks as well who have pointed to Zoran Mamdani's looks, his name, those types of things. But I don't know that Trump has done that.
Because he wants to distract from what I'm fighting for. And I'm fighting for the very working people that he ran a campaign to empower that he has since then betrayed. And when we talk about my politics, I call myself a democratic socialist in many ways inspired by the words of Dr. King from decades ago, who said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there has to be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And as income inequality has declined nationwide, it has increased in New York City. And ultimately, what we need is a city where every single person can thrive.
All right, stay right there. We are going to take a quick break. More of our exclusive conversation with Zoran Mamdani when we come right back. Stay with us.
I did not know that this was a doubleheader. I mean, you can't color me because I'm colored, but it colored me surprised.
We are back here live in New York with State Assemblyman and the presumptive Democratic nominee for mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani. Thank you so much for sticking around for more questions. Let's talk about immigration, deportation. Are you committed to keeping New York as a sanctuary city?
Absolutely, because ultimately we've seen that this is a policy that has kept New Yorkers safe for decades. It's a policy that had previously been defended by Democrats and Republicans alike until the fear-mongering of this current mayor. And it's a policy that we've seen ensures that New Yorkers can get out of the shadows and into the full life of the city that they belong to. And it's one that I will be proud to stand up for.
Well, the border czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is planning to deploy ICE agents to New York, worksite enforcement to essentially increase and enhance the number of ICE agents here. If that happens on your watch, how do you plan to handle it?
We have to stand up and fight back, and we haven't seen that from our current mayor, who has instead been working with the Trump administration to assist in their goal of building the single largest deportation force in American history. I mean, we saw ICE agents arrest a migrant at Federal Plaza, and then we saw NYPD officers arresting a pastor who was peacefully observing that arrest. Those days are going to come to an end when I'm the mayor. The NYPD's job is to create public safety in the city, not to assist ICE agents in their mission to attack the very fabric of this city.
I don't think illegal immigration, if illegal immigration is the fabric of your city, that's a problem on that rivals that of the South, the backbone of the South being built upon slavery. But I will say, of course, if a pastor is if a pastor is being arrested truly, right? Because sometimes people will spin stories, but if a pastor is truly being arrested just for observing an arrest, I think that that is obviously wrong, and that is the type of thing that needs to end. But the idea that ICE should not be arresting illegal immigrants and working to have them deported is absolutely ludicrous. We're talking about the violation of federal law here. The proper punishment for being here illegally, just legally, is being deported. I actually have a video about that as well. I think it's called like something about due process or something like that. But it's like, you've got a law. People have broken that law. There's a certain punishment for that law. Getting people punished for breaking the law is not fascism or authoritarianism. It's not. There's a strange idea that requiring people to have the necessary legal documents and follow legal processes to come into this country, supporting that makes you a fascist, is just one of the most bizarre things that I have seen in American politics. I think probably the second most bizarre thing I've seen in American politics, behind Donald Trump actually becoming like a serious presidential, a serious politician in the United States. Because it's like, it's wild. Historically, we've never viewed, limiting residency in a country to citizens as being something fascistic, but all of a sudden, it's just something that we constantly see from the left now, rhetorically, and it's such a strange phenomenon.
To talk about the historic nature of your candidacy. If you were to win, you would become the first Muslim mayor of New York City. Along the way, throughout the course of this primary campaign, you have received death threats. You've received all sorts of attacks online. Congressman Andy Ogles called for you to be deported, for example, because you were born in Uganda. He also issued an Islamophobic epithet, which I am not going to repeat here. But what type of toll has this taken on you personally and on your family?
I think more politicians who are immigrants need to be asked this question. I was actually thinking about this because for the next leg of my vacation, I'm going to be in Ohio, and I was actually kind of thinking, like Vivek Ramaswamy is running for office in Ohio. What kind of question would I ask Vivek Ramaswamy if I were to run up to him? One of the questions I actually would ask is, you've received a lot of attacks because of your race, nationally when running for office. Has that been different for you in Ohio? And sort of just like, how do you take those attacks head on without feeling discouraged? Because, it's very standard and normal for minorities to become extremely discouraged when receiving continual racial epithets and, just like verbal assaults. And I think that this needs to be brought up more often, because I think that it's a way for both the interviewer and the interviewee to kind of like go head to head against some of the actually fascistic messaging that we're seeing from the far right. And in actual, literally racially nationalistic talking points, which is like, oh, you've got to be a white Christian to be president of the United States, and all of this stuff, where it's like we really do need to cut off rhetoric like this at the knees.
It's been difficult. It's been difficult to have to deal with the.
I saw pretty. Sorry, I do read. This is a reminder, guys, that I do read your chats even if I'm not reading them aloud, because Bray Leno in the chat said, "Bro, you got nothing on your taskbar. Bro, you got nothing there." Well, this is a computer that I've been using primarily for DJing. And I was like, okay, well, this is the only laptop that I have. I should get this set up for streaming as well. I don't need a bajillion things on my taskbar. The reason I have a bajillion things when I stream from home is just because I have they're like a bunch of things I do on my main computer, and so I just have like a bunch of things up on my taskbar. Here, literally all I've been doing with my computer is streaming. So that's why all you're seeing here is just like my streaming stuff, because I haven't really been using this for anything else. The only other thing I use this computer for is DJing. So that sort of explains that. I do think it's funny how you pointed that out, though.
And on your family?
It's been difficult. It's been difficult to have to deal with the regular and repeated smears and slander upon my name and on the very basis of my faith. And I think what's so sad is that this is but a glimpse into what life is like for many Muslim New Yorkers and many New Yorkers of different faiths who are constantly being told that they don't belong in this city and in this country that they love. And ultimately what continues to give me hope is that these moments are but small examples, something that goes against what so many New Yorkers actually feel.
Bro, I'm calling it now. If Fox News ever does a red versus blue debate, it should be Zoran Mamdani versus Vivek Ramaswamy. That would go gangbusters. That'd be fire.
Because what we know is that this is a city for all of us. And what Tuesday night showed is that what New Yorkers want more than anything is a vision that binds us all together.
I want to ask you about an issue that has divided some New Yorkers in recent weeks. You were recently asked about the term globalize the intifada, if it makes you uncomfortable. In that moment, you did not condemn the phrase. Now, just so folks understand, it's a phrase that many people hear as a call to violence against Jews. There's been a lot of attention on this issue. So I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that, to have meaning, have to be applied to all people, and that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think that's the question and the outstanding issue that a number of people, both of the Jewish faith and beyond, have. Do you condemn that phase, globalize the intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me.
So the answer is no. He doesn't condemn it. He probably supports it. And I kind of hate how he's trying to weasel it. I really appreciate, even for people I disagree with, right? And this was actually one thing I respect about Zoran Mamdani is that in general, he stands on business rather than pretending to be one thing. And I'm presuming he's being authentic here, rather than pretending to be one thing and then claiming you're being something else. Donald Trump appeals to this very, very, very well. But for this answer sort of shows him straying away from that a bit, because he probably, I think I'm 99% sure, he supports the globalize the intifada messaging. That's why he's refusing to condemn it here. But, if this is something he truly supports, then just say that. Be like, okay, I want to globalize the intifada. It's not illegal for him to say that. I know we've got anti-BDS laws, but I don't think it would run afoul of that. Now, do I condemn the use of the phrase globalized intifada? Absolutely. I think that there are certainly some people who don't mean to support violence when they say that. You got to be fair to that. But if you look at what intifadas are, it's literal uprisings, violent uprisings to be exact, of Palestinians up against Jews in Israel. Now we can go into the reasonings for all of that, but the fact of the matter is, intifadas in their literal sense have historically always been violent. The first intifada, second intifada, third intifada, they've all been violent. So to say, oh, we need to take intifadas, which historically have been violent, and globalize those, not good. And for what those people really mean to say, which is support the BDS movement, boycott Zionist organizations and companies. There are ways to do that without invoking violent rhetoric. And I would of course I don't support that either, but I would at least say, hey, you guys should be, if this is your position, you should be going out and saying, hey, don't support Zionist organizations, don't support Zionist companies. That's actually kind of my whole heart behind opposing the anti-BDS laws, is because I feel like, there's no reason why under the First Amendment, Americans can't say, let's boycott these organizations. I think it's absolutely absurd that you can't just say that. And it's actually kind of crazy that it's more legal to invoke violent language from intifadas than it is to be a full-throated member of the BDS movement. That is crazy to me.
Especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism.
Bray Little says he yapping. I know he says that in person for real. It would be so funny if in like a year or two there's like leaked footage of Zoran Mamdani saying like globalize the intifada after all of this dodging and dancing that he's done around the question. That'd be hilarious.
In Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears and I've had those conversations, and ultimately they are part and parcel of why in my campaign I've put forward a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%. I don't believe that the role of the mayor is to police speech in the manner especially of that of Donald Trump, who has put one New Yorker in jail who's just returned to his family, Mahmoud Khalil, for that very supposed crime of speech. Ultimately,
well, the Mahmoud Khalil thing that's a fake news thing. I'm not going to go into all of that, but I think it's a fair position to say like, oh, as mayor, it doesn't make sense for me to go around and police speech. I sort of disagree. I think that you can condemn phrases while saying that people should still be allowed to say them. That's totally different. But he himself actually said, no, I don't use that language. Well, why not then? If he doesn't oppose it, then why doesn't he say it? I think that it would have been helpful for him to say, like, I don't use it because it's connected to violent rhetoric, blah, 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 but I do understand why people are using that language. In America, usually it's for, like, peaceful support of the BDS movement. Like, it's not that hard to give a reasonable answer to a question like this, and Zoran Mamdani fumbled it in large part because I think he's a little bit more radical when it comes to the Israel and Palestine conflict. On the pro-Palestine side, there are plenty of radicals on the Zionist side, but I think he's a little bit more radical than he sort of wants to let on at this particular moment, because he is running for public office, and there are a lot of Jews in New York, so you can't just like be extremely staunchly anti-Zionist in sort of like a bizarro Superman way, where it's like everything that is pro-Zionism, I am against all of it. I think Israel shouldn't exist anymore. I think that the entire region should be run by Arabs. Like, it's hard to sort of, and I don't know if that's his position, by the way, but I'm just saying it's hard to have such a radical pro-Palestinian position in such a Jewish area like New York City. So I can see why he's couching his language when it comes to the conflict in the region.
Ultimately, what I think I need to show is the ability to not only talk about something, but to tackle it and to make clear that there's no room for anti-Semitism in this city. And we have to root out that bigotry, and ultimately we do that through the actions, and that is the mayor I will be, one that protects Jewish New Yorkers and lives up to that commitment through the work that I do.
But quickly, for the people who care about the language and who feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president, who is looking to do those very kinds of things, putting people in jail for writing an op-ed, putting them in jail for protesting. Ultimately, it's not language that I use. It's language I understand there are concerns about. And what I will do is showcase my vision for the city through my words and my actions.
Let me ask you broadly, you're surprised.
Like Bray Leno said in the chat, like bro's yapping.
Victory has some progressive Democrats saying, boy, you may have determined the model for the Democratic Party nationally in this moment. Do you think your campaign represents the playbook for how to win in the Trump era for Democrats?
I think it showcases a new approach to politics in our city, and it's for others to decide across our country. Ultimately, what we wanted to do from the very beginning of this race was change our political instinct from lecturing to listening. And after the presidential election, where we saw New York be the state in the nation with the largest swing towards Donald Trump, 11.5 points. And we saw that swing took place far from the caricatures of Trump voters. I went to those hearts of immigrant New York City that were the fulcrum of those swings, Hillside Avenue in Queens, Fordham Road in the Bronx. And I asked Democrats, who did you vote for and why? And I heard from them again and again, I voted for Donald Trump because I could afford things that are now out of my reach today. And ultimately, when I asked them what would it take to bring you back to the Democratic Party, they said a relentless focus on an economic agenda. And that's the campaign that we built.
Do you think that your apparent victory is a sign that there is an appetite for young progressives like a Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to run for president in 2028?
It's an honor to be
It's not just this, Bernie Sanders could have and should have won the Democratic Party nomination in 2016. I think that really shows that there is an appetite for progressive politicians. Now, I will say that I don't know how popular in general progressivism is. I still think it's a minority worldview, just like fascism, just like the far right and the alt-right. I think that when you have a progressive going up against unpopular establishment candidates, every single time the progressive will win. But when it comes to a progressive going against a popular establishment Democrat, I don't know that progressives are going to win. I don't know if that's a foregone conclusion. And then, of course, you've got the hurdle of I think progressives make up no more than 50% of the Democratic Party base, and that is being extremely generous. I think it's closer to 25%. What happens when you have a progressive who is controversial in the Democratic Party going against a Republican Party candidate who's not nearly as controversial? I would be shocked if the next GOP candidate is as controversial as Donald Trump is. So you have to have mainstream appeal to win national elections, and I just don't think that right now progressives are at that point yet.
Endorsed by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and to have been represented by her for so many years, because she's showcased so much of what we're trying to do in this campaign. The ability to not only stand up and fight, but also to win. And ultimately, what people want to see is someone who doesn't just believe in something, but can deliver on those things. And now, especially more than ever, we need to be a party that's not just against Donald Trump, but also for something. And our campaign was for working people, for bringing dignity back into those lives. And that's what the Congresswoman has showed time and again.
I can't let you go without doing a little bit of local politics.
Please.
So Mayor Eric Adams already in the general election as an independent candidate. We're waiting to see if Andrew Cuomo officially throws his hat into the ring. Do you think you can win if the two of them are in the race? Can you beat both of them?
Absolutely. We can beat anyone that's in this race, because what we've shown is that this is a campaign that has the support of more than 400,000 New Yorkers. In the first round of Tuesday night, we got more votes than Eric Adams did by the last round of 2021. And ultimately, it's a referendum on how he made this city so unaffordable. For too long, politicians have pretended to simply be bystanders to a cost of living crisis. They've actually exacerbated it. And our vision is one that will respond to it and make this a city affordable for every New Yorker.
All right. Assemblyman Zoran Mamdani, thank you so much for the conversation. Really appreciate it. Please stay safe on the campaign trail.
Thank you so much for having me.
I do want to add a little bit of commentary there on the end, because I do think it's very interesting you brought that Kristen Welker brought up Eric Adams. I do find this fascinating. I feel like nobody really pays much attention to local city party nomination processes. Like, no one really cares about those. But I do find it interesting. I think if Eric Adams had won the Democratic Party nomination, he would be a shoo-in for winning the mayoral race. Like, imagine if you flip the roles and put, say, that Eric Adams won the Democratic Party nomination, and that Zoran Mamdani is an independent. Then I think that Eric Adams would be a shoo-in to win the mayoral race. It's kind of crazy how much power you get in an election just by having the party nomination, even when nobody is paying attention to the party nomination process. I find that really interesting. Like, who's going to get more votes? Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams? probably Andrew Cuomo, literally because he was running for the Democratic Party nomination previously. And people are aware that he lost that to Zoran Mamdani. It's almost like people just naturally disregard independence for some reason, which I think is quite unfortunate. But these policy proposals from Zoran Mamdani, I think in general, are not workable. He's got a few good ideas. Particularly, I love the public transit idea, getting rid of extra fees and stuff just to use the system you already pay for. Love that idea. But for the majority of stuff, I feel like it's just not going to work. In places where it's been tried, it hasn't worked, right? He touted Kansas City, and then I went and looked it up, and all the shelves are empty. The place is stinking, and you smell rotten eggs. I don't think that that's the vision he wants to sell, and that's why he's claiming it was successful. When in reality, it's literally about to fail. We've got a store with no products. What type of store is that? It's ridiculous. That's no store. That's a building. That's a hollowed husk. Man, but yeah, if he wins, it'd be really interesting to see what happens to New York City. I'm glad I got the chance to visit before everything went down, at least. Yeah. All right. Actually, you know what? I'm going to read some of these chats before I go on to the next video, because Bray Leno has been leaving a lot of messages here in the chat. He said he was at his stepdad's house. He's been living there for 3 or 4 years. So are you like moving to your grandmother's house like long term, like permanently? Interesting. Has he got a Sackboy PFP and 230 followers in a day? Is that on YouTube? That's pretty good. I mean, the Sackboy PFP is free, but I kind of see what you're talking about there. Let's see here. Brando says, I've not had dinner, bro. I'm hungry. Not much I can do about that, but I would like to hear what you would actually like to have for dinner. I'd be a little bit curious as to that. Brando says, I didn't sleep at all last night. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. He says, what do you would break first, a knife on a row of teeth or the teeth? What? I don't know what that means. What? I'm lost, but not as lost as you. I don't know what this means at all. Moving to Nana's permanently. That's cool. And you said TT. There's a way that I can interpret that, but I don't know what you mean by that. Alrighty. The New York Times put out this video here called Bad News Democrats, America is about to get even redder. Really curious to see what they have to say here.
Democrats forget the last election. Winning future ones might be about to get even harder. And it's got nothing to do with the border or inflation or trans rights or Trump, and everything to do with the numbers on this spreadsheet. They reveal how many Americans pack up their things and move from one state to another. It's a lot, more than 7 million people in 2023. Now, my colleague Benjamin Applebaum, he writes about the economy for the New York Times. He went through this whole spreadsheet, scouring 2 decades worth of data, and he found something that should strike fear into every Democrat. Millions of people have moved out of California, New York, Illinois, and other blue states, and they're moving to Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, red ones. Some are drawn by new manufacturing jobs, others are pulled by finance and tech hubs, but it's mostly teachers, police officers, dentists, people who just want a more affordable quality of life. People also move to blue states, of course, but in smaller numbers. In fact, over the last 20 years, 9 million more people migrated from blue to red than in the other direction. And Democrats, this is bad news for you. Why?
I don't understand, because from everything I've seen, blue voters go from a blue state to a red state. They keep voting blue. That's why, some areas of Texas are kind of purple now. Actually, they're not just completely red. Is because they've had so much immigration now. I don't know this idea that just like America is just suddenly going to become blue because blue state voters are going to red states. I think this idea that America is just going to suddenly turn red because blue state voters are moving to red states is a little bit ludicrous. I will say it's likely going to mean that we're going to see an inversion of the map at some point if this trend continues to happen. You got the Democrats going to red states, turning those states blue. Theoretically could happen. But because they've left those blue states and the Republicans remain, theoretically, then the states that were formerly blue end up becoming red, right? We could live to see a red California or a red New York if they keep on losing citizens. So on that front, maybe we could see a flip. It doesn't mean that, the whole country is going to turn red.
Because the size of a state's population determines how many electoral college votes it receives. The next national census takes place in 2030, and assuming the migration flows on this spreadsheet continue until then, look what happens. California loses 4 votes, New York loses 3, Illinois loses 2, and other blue states like Minnesota, Oregon, and Rhode Island all lose a vote.
So we're talking about electoral college votes. I was talking about the maps, but okay, so from this perspective, this makes a bit more sense.
And they go, just like the people, to those red states. In total, this reallocation could cost Democrats 12 electoral college votes, and don't forget, this would be locked in for a decade until the next census. So if your 2032 candidate wins exactly the same number of states as Kamala Harris just did, they won't get 226 votes, they'll only get 214. Democrats have been dreaming for decades that this population get 214.
The difference, 226 to 214, is not really a major difference. Now, if it continues to change, then it's a little dramatic, but it's 12 electoral college votes. It's not absurd. It's not a crazy difference. It does mean that close elections, though, will be against the Democrats' favor rather than in their favor, or at least most likely, I would presume.
Democrats have been dreaming for decades that these population shifts would help turn red states purple. Instead, Texas and Florida have simply become bigger red states.
Well, it's going to take a lot of immigration to truly turn those states purple. I think it can happen, but this immigration just has to continue happening at steady rates for it to happen. Rome wasn't built in a day, and a red state's not going to turn purple in a day either.
Now look, a lot could change before the next census in 5 years, but blue states are going to have to change first. People still want to live in California and New York, but the cost of living must come down. If the Democratic governors of these states want to avoid a decade of electoral oblivion, they have one job: make their states places people can afford to stay.
True. The best way to do that is raise taxes. Let's see here. Braylon said, did you see a Florida man got caught drunk driving a lawnmower on the highway? Interesting. Does a lawnmower count as a motor vehicle? I can't believe I'm asking this question. Let me see here. Because if it doesn't count as a motor vehicle, then I don't know how it's drunk driving. Oh, I got a DUI because I was driving a lawnmower while intoxicated. Is that a thing? I don't know. Okay, so me, I love looking at fun skits that have nothing to do with politics as a way to unwind. So I'm going to react to this skit here that Julie Nolke did called "What Trump is Doing to America."
So you know how I'm reading all the classics? How could I forget? Because before you thought Catcher in the Rye was about a baseball player in a bread factory. I still stand by the fact that that's a confusing title. Anyway, right now I'm reading 1984. Oh yeah. I think I read that in high school. That one's about the dystopian world, right? Oh, buddy, it's super dystopian, like hardly even believable. Like this book is out there. Really? It's far-fetched, hardly even readable in some parts. I'll like read a page and be like, this is a bit much. I remember it being really good, but I mean, maybe it didn't age well. Definitely doesn't make sense nowadays. No, like, okay, so for starters, there's this like leader who's got this massive ego and is desperate to have people worship him. Okay. No, he's like a sociopath. Yeah, like.
I mean, I don't know that Trump is a sociopath, but I don't think that having a sociopathic popular leader means that we're living in 1984.
I think he took over the government and
winning an election doesn't mean that we're in 1984 either.
Does whatever he wants now. Like, is any of that legal? I don't think so. Like, he goes around Congress. Right? In what world? Right.
I don't think that Trump has really gone around Congress. He's used the constitutional powers that have been afforded to him. He spitballed potentially doing things that he would need congressional approval for, that he literally, or even with congressional approval, he literally can't do, like removing citizenship of American citizens because he doesn't like what they say on The View. But A, it's not clear how serious he is about that, and B, he hasn't even taken any proper steps to do that.
And then, okay, so then there's this whole part where they just like steal people off the streets. Like they just take them and then like put them somewhere with no due process or like habeas corpus, and it's
not really happening right now, unfortunately. Like the American government's not just like disappearing people. You know, there are people who've done some crimes that are being arrested. That's not the same as kidnapping people and locking them up in some deep dark basement somewhere for fun.
and they'll tell a whole like cockamamie story about this person, and people just go along. Yeah, Darla, sorry, I'm going to stop you there. This is all feeling a little on the nose. What are you talking about? This book was written decades ago. It's basically a fantasy novel. Yeah, it's just that you're saying a lot of stuff that isn't fantasy. No. Trust me, this book is a joke. Like, oh my God, like the government's got the most ridiculous slogans. Well, that's, yeah. And oh my God, they do.
I mean, marketing is just terrible. I don't know of anyone who's come up with this. I don't know of any major slogans, corporate or political, that are not ridiculous. So that kind of transcends time for sure.
It's like 2 minutes of hate thing that just like gets everyone all riled up. Is it cable news or is it social media? What? Oh, and they have these screens where they control what people see and hear and are constantly watching civilians, tracking their interests, religious ideologies, and just general data. Yeah, so you do remember it. No, that was just a good guess. Oh. Well, I don't even know if I can finish the book because it's hardly even believable. Like, honestly, it's just a bunch of rich guys at the top playing with people's lives like it's a board game. Darla, do you read the news at all? Like, are you up to date on current events? No, because I've been reading these classics. Like, War and Peace took me a year. Yeah, okay, that adds up. Why, should I? No, I'd say you're pretty caught up. Oh, okay, good. Next up is To Kill a Mockingbird, and honestly, I do not know if I'm ready for a bird murdering novel, but people say it's good, so. Yeah, well, good luck. Thank you. What happens at the end of 1984? It had a happy ending, right? Yeah. Yeah, they got the revolution they were looking for.
Oh, see, and one thing that annoys me about bad faith interpretations of political events is I'm quite sure that Julie Nolke is not being bad faith here in the observations that she is, or not observations, in the conclusions that she is coming to when it comes to what's going on in American politics. But it leads to these skits that, like, if you're paying attention to what's actually happening in America, rather than just like the rhetoric that is being spewed by various outlets and things, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's not the most coherent thing in the world. Where it's like, if you're to look and see what's happening in real life, the things that Julie Nolke is saying is happening are not happening. And so now you've got this satire of something that doesn't exist, and it just really falls flat. Now, there are certainly people of a certain worldview who believe that what she's saying is true, and for them, they're going to look at this and be like, oh, this is so poignant, this is so true. Right when we needed her, she made this little skit just for me and you. Like, but outside of that audience, which is probably not the majority of Americans, it just is not going to connect, and it's just like it's not going to age well. It's not going to age well. All right, so we're running a little bit late on time. I know we're creeping up on midnight, and I've got no restrictions imposed on me, but tomorrow is going to be a travel day for me, so I'm not going to try to stream for much longer. I am going to try to wrap things up, but I'm going to read some of your chats. I'm going to react to one more video, read your chats again, and then we're going to call it a night here. So Braylon says, my grandparents think everything Trump does is good. Yes, so they're probably part of the MAGA cult, and it's a legit cult, an actual cult. If you believe that Donald Trump can do no wrong, you are literally in a cult. I think that Christianity is fine because God actually has done no wrong. But outside of believing in God and trusting every single thing that He's done, if you're looking at someone and saying like, hey, this person has made zero mistakes and has been right about everything, breaking news, dude, like you're in a cult, right? that's just how it works. All right, so we've got this segment here. This seemed like something interesting to cover. This is from a few weeks ago, but I feel like this hasn't gotten the attention that it deserves. Someone got pardoned for plotting to incite a civil war on, I don't know if it happened on January 6th, but kind of interesting. Every day that you see right-wing, what is it? It's not every day you see like right-wing terrorists get convicted for something. It's not every day you see right-wing terrorists at all. So this sort of piqued my interest, let's say. So let's take a look at this and see what the details are.
A Tennessee man who was pardoned by President Trump has been sentenced to life in prison for plotting to attack FBI agents and attempting to incite a civil war. Edward Kelly was the fourth rioter to enter the Capitol on January 6th. He faced a separate investigation for targeting federal agents who were looking into his role in the Capitol attack. Now Kelly is set to spend the rest of his life behind bars. For more, let's bring in CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane. Scott, what more can you tell us about what happened in this case?
Yeah, Jolene, our CBS News review of this case shows that according to the Department of Justice, it was during the investigation of Edward Kelly's role in January 6th that he began targeting the FBI agents and the FBI overall that were part of the investigation into him. This began in 2022, according to the U.S. Department of Justice, that there was some type of plotting, amassing of resources, if not a plan and a way to execute the plan to target federal agents. They call it conspiracy for murder. So Edward Kelly, who was pardoned on January 20th for his role in the U.S. Capitol insurrection, now faces a life prison term for what he did while under investigation for the U.S. Capitol insurrection. There has been, as this week ends, no pardon for Edward Kelly in this separate case, which is being prosecuted in the Eastern District of Tennessee.
So first of all, and I'm actually kind of happy to have an opportunity to say this because I think that lately Trump voters have been taking a lot of L's if you just look at things objectively. But this is actually a rare Donald Trump W, right? To have this guy prosecuted who was threatening to topple the federal government. And he's a right-wing aspiring terrorist. I mean, he's a failed one. He didn't succeed. He didn't even get a chance to pull his plan off. But I think that if you wanted to make the argument that, hey, the Trump administration is truly unbiased, this would be the perfect thing to point to. Because if the Trump administration was really just about just protecting Republicans and harming Democrats, then they wouldn't be prosecuting this guy for threatening to create a civil war. Right? They would be like, oh, well, he's on our team. He was literally in the Capitol of January 6th. Let this guy go free. He is like one of us. But like, no. He's actually getting prosecuted to the full extent of the law, as he should be. This is good news. He's being prosecuted, and also pretty rare. I feel like that we see right-wing terrorism to this degree. So I'm really glad that when it's happening, it's getting stamped out, because otherwise people would be emboldened to do more things like this.
How many other people who were pardoned by the president have since faced new criminal investigations, Scott?
Oh, there have been some, including one who was arrested just days later on a gun charge, and another, a Texas man who was actually freed from prison because of the pardon, not just having his slate clear, but was actually released from the prison gates, who was later charged with child solicitation. That's what's happened so far. But one of the warnings that Justice Department officials gave during the Biden administration was that if there are pardons, these are people with a history of recidivism, of criming again after they get released, and we're seeing that play out already here in 2025.
You also have some new reporting on the opposition to the FBI's planned move of its headquarters to the former office of USAID. What have you learned?
This is a controversial move. The FBI changing offices, leaving the 50-year-old J. Edgar Hoover building, which, to put it charitably, is falling apart, to a different office space in Washington, D.C., in the Ronald Reagan building. That may seem bureaucratic, but there are a lot of concerns here. First of all, because law and funding require it to move to Maryland. A new site was being planned out and soon would be constructed in Greenbelt, Maryland. The Trump administration is defying that and instead deciding to move.
Wait. If the building has not been constructed in Maryland, how can you move there? Right? And you're saying that J. Edgar Hoover building is falling apart, so you want them to stay there? I think that it's fine to maybe set interim headquarters at the Reagan building and then move everyone over to Maryland once the Maryland structure is complete.
In Washington, D.C., to an area that critics say is not properly secured and not properly equipped to house the nation's top law enforcement investigating agency. We expect, Jolene, there to be legal challenges and congressional efforts to defund this move across town in Washington, D.C. and force this thing to go to Maryland. Just one of the many dramas playing out for the new FBI director, the one you just saw, Kash Patel.
A lot going on there. And there's also some developments in the federal probe examining the death of Daniel Park, who was charged in connection with the bombing of that fertility clinic in Palm Springs, California. What's the latest there?
Things happen so quickly, it's easy to lose track of some of these very emergent issues from a few weeks ago. But you'll recall that explosion, that bombing of the fertility clinic in California. There is a man charged with being a co-conspirator. His name is Daniel Park from Washington State. He died in prison while awaiting prosecution on the conspiracy charge. He's 32 years old. Anytime a 32-year-old dies while in custody, there's going to be some questions. His defense lawyer tells CBS News tonight that this likely was a death by suicide, that it raises questions how somebody can die by suicide inside a U.S. federal correctional facility while being held in a high-profile case. There are going to be questions asked by his family and by investigators inside a Los Angeles detention facility, about which questions have been raised already about there's inside a Los Angeles detention facility. His family
shouted. I hope someone left a comment there about that. Did anyone leave a comment about that? No one left a comment. That's crazy. That almost scared me. I was like, what is that?
While being held in a high-profile case. There are going to be questions asked by his family and by investigators inside a Los Angeles detention facility, about which questions have been raised already about conditions inside.
Scott McFarland, thank you so much for all that reporting.
So a lot of news about federal cases, but the big one being, of course, the terrorist, the attempted terrorist, the failed terrorist. I'm really glad that he's being prosecuted. That's really good news. I think Donald Trump needs to give a public announcement or statement saying that he is not going to have this guy pardoned at all. I think that would put a lot of people at ease. I think a statement like that would be needed because American people need to be assured that Trump is not going to go easy on right-wing terrorists. No one likes terrorism, really, except for extremely radical people. And I don't think that, the majority of Americans want to see right-wing terrorism. I think the majority of Americans also don't want to see left-wing terrorism. We've seen plenty of left-wing terrorism already. And if right-wing terrorism is allowed to fester as well, I think that will cause a lot of Americans a lot of concerns. And for the people who are saying like, oh, this is the start of a civil war, that's the start of a civil war, I think that it would give some credence to those people when it's like, okay, we know that there's like Antifa who's violent at various protests and events, but now on the right, we've also got people who are doing the same thing, who are also allowed to, who are like arrested and then later on left off the hook. Like, you know, this is not looking good. I think he'd be completely valid for having that take. So, really interesting to see what happens there. Of course, no indication yet that guy is going to be pardoned, but you know, honestly, with this administration, you never know. All right, so we're going to wrap things up for the night because I do have a very, very busy day ahead. There is a possibility that I do a stream on the road. And if I do a stream on the road, I'll certainly let you guys know. But it's a little bit more likely that I end up doing a stream once I am at my next hotel. So I'll keep you guys updated there. Also, I did go on a trip while I was here that I recorded like some vlog footage. I'm trying to get a copy of that vlog footage so that I can edit it down and create a version to present to you guys so I can kind of like talk about the trip. Very, very cool. Went to Times Square, got to see Times Square. Also got to check out the AMC Lincoln Square 13, which is at the moment of this stream / recording, the second largest IMAX screen in the United States at 98 feet tall. Absolutely insane. It was a joy to watch Fantastic Four there. But yeah, so those are the things I'm working on, the things that are kind of like imminently up next for the streaming channel and stuff. And because I've streamed and recorded a lot of content here, I'm going to be editing stuff down through the Non-Newbie Highlights channel. So those videos will go up every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then I'll upload 2 additional videos next week to sort of compensate for the fact that I didn't upload videos for the past Wednesday or Friday. So guys, you guys should brace yourselves for that as well. But thanks to everyone who tuned in. I saw Bray Leno here in the chat said, "Bro, I hate war. Can't they wait till I die, then fight Bro Chacho because I don't want to die because of war?" I mean, fair. Yeah, I hate war too, bro. Big Monkey tried to take the picture, bro. I don't know what that means, but thanks again. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Check out dscrd.ntwb.cc is the place you want to be if you want to chat with me. I accept React requests there. Actually, some of the things that I've been reacting to on this trip were from React requests. Like, I know that some people have requested me to react to an entire series. Like, wants them to know how I believe I'll be reacting to multiple wrestling events from the PWS series hosted by Mr. Pizza. So like stuff like that, if you have things you want me to react to, throw it in there. I might not get to everything. If you send me a 1 hour long video, I might be a little bit apprehensive to cover that in the stream, but I'll do what I can and I'll see what I can do. So thanks again everyone for tuning in. I'll see you guys in another stream, perhaps. Peace out, y'all.